Who is your hero? Maybe it's an important civil rights activist. Maybe it's your parents if you're a boring person. Or maybe it's a superhero, a fictitious character we can all look up to in a corrupt world. Personally, I have a different type of hero, an underrated folk hero who taught me and many others to embrace their weird, humorous, beautiful flamboyance. I'll let him introduce himself.
They say that the notion of love at first sight is an impossible idea. Now, I may have been born yesterday, but I still went shopping.
Greetings, my good bitches. The name's Francis, Coke Francis. I'm a filmmaker, stand-up comedian, drag artist, and I've started this YouTube channel because my therapist told me to. And I couldn't think of a better way to kick things off than with an analysis of one of my personal heroes, the incomparable Buddy Cole. Created by Canadian writer-performer Scott Thompson, Buddy Cole is a character from the 90s sketch comedy show Kids in the Hall. If you've never seen the show, please get your fucking life together and watch it. It's like Monty Python or SNL, but gayer and more offensive.
Remember, a slave treated with love and respect can live up to 73 years.
What?
Oh, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this guy's just some right-wing paranoid reactionary who had a horrible upbringing and whose father beat him every day with a Bible. Well, maybe that's true, but it never did me any harm.
You Big Bird?
No, but I want to meet him because the bearded lady says they call him Big Bird because he's got a really big...
Shut up!
I wasn't born queer. My mom just watched this show constantly when I was in the womb, and look how perfectly I turned out.
You want me to give you a quarter so that you can masturbate in front of my child?
Yeah!
Kids in the Hall was never a ratings giant, but it did manage to squeeze out 5 seasons. After signing off the air in 1995, the show has since become a cult favorite in the US and Canada. Many comedy writers cite Kids in the Hall as one of their main influences, including South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker. The show has also become something of a cultural milestone for queer representation on TV, and that's where Mr. Thompson and his most famous creation come in.
Sir, the defense is prepared to plead guilty to a lesser charge of oof.
Innocent, Your Honor.
Fine, case dismissed, you're free to go. Oh, and by the way, I'm a great fan of your monologues.
Thanks.
Scott is an openly gay comedian whose career began in the 1980s, around the start of the AIDS crisis. And for those of you who don't know, it was a terrible fucking time. Anti-queer discrimination was the norm. All over the world, queer people were ostracized at best and brutally terrorized at worst. Governments stood by and did nothing while AIDS wreaked havoc on the queer community, BIPOC, poor folks, and other minority groups. Right-wing Christians saw the virus as divine punishment for what they believed was moral degeneracy, so they hate fun. People with the disease were criminally neglected and millions of lives were lost.
But they would do things like they would wipe the mic and go, I don't want to get AIDS.
Oh.
That's how I was introduced.
Wow.
Wait, introduced?
Brutal.
After I'd come on.
So, and they would do that on
they'd go,
stage?
we got to wipe the AIDS germs off.
Wow.
Damn. And then I would be called faggot. I mean, every time I went up, I was called a faggot.
Look, I and most other queer people have dealt with discrimination and problems with self-acceptance, but as a millennial, I can't even begin to imagine what it must have been like to be in Scott's position. He watched so many of his friends and loved ones die from AIDS on a regular basis for years. He faced despicable levels of discrimination for not keeping his sexuality a secret. Simply the act of existing while being queer was an act of rebellion.
Back then, being an openly gay guy was like a real punk move. It really... It screwed people up and it made people furious.
Okay, that got pretty heavy. Back to the comedy. Scott joined a sketch group with Dave Foley, Kevin McDonald, Bruce McCulloch, and Mark McKinney. And in 1988, with the help of comedy demagogue Lorne Michaels, boom! The Kids in the Hall burst through the late-night TV placenta. One of my personal favorite aspects of the show was how frequently the cast got into drag, but the joke was never, "Ha, look at me, a dude in a dress, I'm such a silly sailor."
You know what's very, very funny? A man dressed in women's clothing.
Yes, quite. Ripping good love.
Yes.
The fact is, they wrote sketches with female characters and needed people in an all-male troupe to play them. Most of them didn't even change their voices when they got into drag, except for Mark McKinney, who still plays women better than I do.
Come on, you guys! Are you kidding? You smoke? You shouldn't be smoking this. You have a mortgage.
And thanks to Scott, the show also featured sketches with gay characters from all across the spectrum. From realistic couples...
Dare we? We dasn't not.
...to realistic friend groups...
Well, I just happen to think that gays were meant to live in sin.
Yeah, it's hotter that way.
and, like it or not, one very realistic guy.
Get extinct.
Buddy Cole was a recurring character on the show, delivering monologues from a gay bar that at one point he purchases, and names after himself.
It's called Buddies. You're sitting in it.
He is an actor, singer,
dancer, model, Canadian.
Also a pen pal of Queen Elizabeth II, who Scott also plays, and weirdly looks exactly like.
Beatrix is quite mad. You're the only other queen that I know. Please advise at once.
His stories of love and adventure and observations on life make it seem as if Buddy has been everywhere and done everything since humanity first discovered that the male G-spot is in the asshole. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who made that discovery. Buddy was initially conceptualized as a 1,000-year-old vampire, which actually would have totally made sense, but that detail was eventually dropped. Still, the overarching theme is that Buddy is a flaming gay polymath who has seen it all. He is at once timeless and ahead of his time.
I may have been born yesterday, but I still went shopping.
That was me.
However, in the 90s, not everyone shared this view. Buddy received plenty of criticism from the gay community. They claimed he was reinforcing negative stereotypes about effeminate gay men.
A lot of men were very embarrassed by Buddy Cole. I think gay men have a real, especially then, a real disconnect between the way they really are and the way they think they're presenting. His effeminacy and his sexuality, which is so on display. Yeah, they were embarrassed by it. They're like, no, I'm straight acting. No one can tell. Mm-hmm. People thought it was like, you're doing a stereotype, and I'm like, well, I prefer archetype.
Dudes like this exist by the millions. We have all met this bitch.
I'm sorry, I just don't think marriage works for anybody, except maybe lesbians. I mean, let's face it, we're faggots. The world hates us. Why ruin a good thing?
Scott actually based Buddy off of a real person, a guy he briefly dated who was flamboyant, promiscuous, and according to Scott, the first effeminate man he had ever felt attracted to. An alpha queen, as he put it. But this man's life was, like many others, cut short by AIDS. Even now, in the year 2021, effeminate men are still stigmatized by the straight and gay communities.
Freeze, on the other hand, was the first man that I've ever known who thought that I was macho. Oh, I know what you're thinking. What, was he blind? No, deaf.
In a patriarchal, heteronormative society, it's still ingrained in our brains that femininity is something weak or something lesser. When femininity is utilized for self-empowerment, it threatens what some perceive as the natural order of things. Limits are placed on which people are allowed to express power and how they're allowed to express it. And this is especially evident in men.
This was my design for the team uniform, but the women said it was too, get ready for this, girly. As if anything can be.
Buddy is not a one-dimensional caricature, and he's not the product of a straight male comedian punching down. By being so self-possessed and unapologetic, Buddy shows that effeminacy is something to be embraced, not hidden.
Touchdown! Hold this. I'll be back.
Scott took a stereotype that straight people were afraid of and gay people were ashamed of and turned it into this almost James Bond-like character who's effortlessly cool and full of wisdom.
Andrew Dice Clay is not the new Lenny Bruce. I am.
And, lest we forget, this was at the height of the AIDS crisis in the early 90s. If that's not the most punk rock shit you've ever heard of, fine, go back to listening to Good Charlotte and worship your false gods. Buddy Cole is one of my personal heroes for these reasons, but I think it goes beyond that. What makes him a folk hero? Here's the Wikipedia definition to ensure accuracy. A folk hero is a type of hero, real, fictional, or mythological, with their name, personality, and deeds embedded in the popular consciousness of a people. The lives of folk heroes are generally fictional, their characteristics and deeds often exaggerated to mythic proportions. Buddy's monologues are frequently hyperbolic. His deeds are outlandish, but like many other folk heroes such as Robin Hood and John Henry, there may be a grain of truth to them.
You would never have lasted on television. I'll bet what you really said in your deathbed was something more like, shit!
The folk hero often begins life as a normal person, but is transformed into someone extraordinary by significant life events, often in response to social injustice. One major category of folk hero is the defender of the common people against the oppression or corruption of the established power structure. Simply put, a folk hero is a hero of the folk. The Old English word folk means common people, or lay people. In other words, not the kings, and not the clergymen. Buddy may see himself as an aristocratic, glamorous superstar who is far more interesting than us plebeians. And he still sits at the bar with us, passing down his stories and skewering the system with wit and subversive guile.
My rules are, stick to pot, occasionally ecstasy, coke, but only if it's offered, and never involve needles. Add alcohol and stir.
But thank our Sky Papa, Buddy Cole is still part of the queer cultural zeitgeist. Scott revived the character on several episodes of The Colbert Report, and he still tours and does one-man shows as Buddy in the year 2021. And I happened to go to one of those shows. And I happened to meet him afterwards. And it was one of the best days of my life. And no, I do not have a picture with him. Just believe me, okay?
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
Anyway, have you heard the news? Buddy's coming back in a Kids in the Hall reboot on Amazon Prime sometime this year, and I officially don't give a fuck who the president is anymore. Considering his live show was one of the funniest I've ever seen in my life, I personally can't wait to watch this old queen school the younger generation in his signature style. If you enjoyed this flagrant act of gay geekiness you just watched, please do us all a favor and dick slap those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. Until next time, howdy-ho.